You got me dancing again, and welcome back.
Welcome back. Good evening, Ashok. How are you? Good to have you back again.
Thank you. How long have I been away? 3 months? 3 years? I don't know.
There was
2 weeks,
many,
is it?
many days, 14 days.
Yes, it's nice to be back in the show and beating to that music. I love that. And how has your week been?
Good, good, actually very good. Very good week. I would say that I had a fruitful week. Of course, we started off with some conversation with our dear guest today. So
Yes.
that kept me going this week too. And I was at a conference today. And I
Mhm.
must say that, I learned so much in the conference. So feeling really pumped up.
Yes, I can see that.
Looking forward to co-host this with you. But more importantly,
Mhm.
I'm very excited to get our guest today because it's been so difficult to get him. I've been
Right,
trying
right,
him for months.
right.
And yeah, it's like I feel like I'm almost going to get him and he can't make it. I'm almost going to get him and I can't make it. So it's with great privilege. I love to introduce Yat Seng, who is the head of talent for Syntoma. Known
Okay.
him for a couple of years, but I think he's been with Syntoma for about 7 years.
Mm.
And in the years that, or in the times that I've been able to communicate with him, when we are working in the learning and development space,
Sure.
he's one of these leaders that I really admire because he's very clear,
Okay.
really clear, direct in his conversation, very level headed.
Mm.
But when you look at clear, direct, level headed, you might miss out on the passion. But Yatsing is very passionate.
Okay.
And what I have seen is this, right? Whenever I deal with his organization, of course, I'm dealing with him. Uh, he is very particular about talking about core values. And by the
Mm.
way, today is World Values Day,
Values Day.
right? And
Perfect, isn't it?
yeah, and their organization is always about anything that you do, you need to connect back to values. Anything you
Beautiful.
do, you connect back to values. And one of
Beautiful.
those things I realize is that, consistently whenever I work with any one of his team, wherever
Hmm.
they are, whenever I get a chance to work with them, there's really something very consistent about their culture of learning, their culture of
Nice.
working, right? And that's why we're very privileged, and I think we are also very lucky to have Yat Singh to join us today in our conversation. And because we are talking about being the beacon, all right, for growth. And
Beacon of development. Yes.
yes, and this month we're doing talent development, and I think, and today being World Values Day, if you've been struggling with, are values really important? Do we really want to take values as part of our talent development strategy? Well, you don't have to decide until you've listened to our Yatsen. Right, Ashok? So shall we bring him on? I know you were
Yes, we
dying to
shall.
ask all the question. Okay, let's bring Yatsen on. Yay!
Hello, Mala and Ashok.
Hello. Yes, saying. How are you, sir?
I'm feeling great. Thank you.
And Muller was saying a lot of great things about you, about how you're so clear, you're so passionate, and everything that you talk in your organization, Sintoma, is always about your values. And I can see that you walk the talk by actually having your values at the back of you today.
and today is the Value Days, right? Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, World Value Days. Yeah, that's a great, how would say, coincidence. Yeah, a good
Nice,
timing.
nice,
Very
nice.
nice.
And we have Sandeep Kulkarni who's saying hello and good evening. Yes, Sandeep, thank you very much for plugging in today and all our guests who are listening in and watching us today. All right, let's start. I'm very curious because a lot of times we talk about, I mean, we go into a lot of organization, we see a lot of core values plastered all over their walls, website and all, but we hardly hear of people using that as a beacon of development, as a beacon of driving the organizational strategies and all, right? So in your 7 odd years with Syntoma, right, could you share with our listeners today what are the benefits of focusing on core values to build a culture?
Uh, Thank you, Ashok, for these questions. Are very interesting. I would say that how people would think that to relate core values, yeah, to an organization culture or even strategy. Um, as you all aware that in any other organizations, whether you're MNC or whether you're small medium, you need to be driven. And for an organization to be successful, we need to have certain guardrail. And these guardrails is more to the core values, right?
Okay.
The core values that this were being defined as the DNA of the organization, how we want to move forward as a
Okay.
team, also how we want to see it to weave in into the HR processes, yeah, to
Okay.
make it more seamless, to build in the culture for the organizations. Uh, Definitely, I see a lot of benefits in core values,
Okay.
yeah, building into the cultures. It's not just like you mentioned that pasting on the wall, okay, have some talk about it, but it's warrant a lot of effort in terms
Okay.
of communications, transparent communications. Uh, Leaders are walking the talk, talking about it genuinely
Right.
with the employee themselves. If let's say any of these days, right, you carry out a employee survey for the organizations,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that appear top will be the core values. People are so clear about the core values. This is where people feel uh, associated with it. Yeah. So this is where I would say that we are not perfect, but of course we have been driving this. Yeah, and this has been building a culture. So, so this value, as you can see from my background here, yeah, there are five, I would say, core values that the
Okay.
company embrace. Yeah, maybe I just move a little bit. The center of it will be the she. Yeah, it's not the lady, but it's the safety, health, and environment.
Okay.
Right? The most important thing, yeah, especially we are in a chemical industries,
Mm-hmm.
we emphasize a lot on safety aspect for our employees, yeah, especially those who are working in the organizations or live here or even using our products, right? Then, of course, when we move on to this she at the core of our values, we also
Okay.
have others value that we think is also important. Yeah, for example, accountability.
Mm.
Accountability is where people own,
Okay.
yeah, the things that they do, setting the standards, all right, in terms of decision making as well.
Mm.
That is particularly important. Then, of course, we go into the integrity portions, right? Integrity for us is more related to code of conduct, compliance, and one of the most important element as well in this integrity is about diversity and inclusion,
Okay.
how we respect individuals and how we want to promote diversity, yeah, within the team itself. Since we are global multinationals from UK, we have operating a footprint across the world. More and more important, yeah, that we need to embrace diversity and inclusion. Okay, then of course the another values that we are emphasize more to teamwork. Teamwork here is like collaborations, how
Okay.
we embrace collaborations here among all the team members. And lastly will be innovations. So
Mm.
innovations, everyone will play a part. Normally when people talk about innovation, it's only for R&D. Yeah, most of the time these perceptions. But
Mm.
for us, innovations come in many sciences. It's not only
Oh.
R&D, but also the things that we do. For example, support team. We can come up with certain innovative ideas on how we're going to support the business. For example, as a back-end support teams, right? Um, Coming up with some continuous improvement. This also will be considered innovation and not necessarily that have to be something new. All right,
Right.
and this innovation will spark the creativity, yeah, out of the individuals. So these are the five um, values that we hold very dearly, yeah, to symptom.
Right. Thank you so very
Right.
much for that. Very nice, elaborate. And I like the fact that the last time you mentioned innovation, yes, because I could see it there, innovation. I was thinking, oh yeah, that's innovation. Being a chemical company, R&D. But I like the fact that you mentioned that this is not related to just R&D, but it can be about continuous improvement. And I like the fact that you even nail it down to the backroom staff supporting the business. How do we have continuous improvement is also considered innovation because it helps creativity, and I believe that also helps with the teamwork that you were talking about. you know
That's
a
right.
very
That's
nice
right.
description. Thank you very much for that. And yes, Gerald, good evening to you too, sir. uh so back to the core values, sir. Yat Sing,
Mm-hmm.
I like the fact that you got very clear outlines of your core values. Now, could you give us an understanding about how does core values play a role from your talent attraction to your talent development journey?
Right. Well, that's very interesting. I would say a lot of things that we are driving from HR perspective,
Hmm.
uh, we are incorporating our core values and even our leadership attributes into our HR processes. For example, the one that you mentioned, starting from talent attraction itself, right?
Okay.
So, of course, when we do employer branding externally, right, this is also one of the things that we highlight, whether it's in career fair, in universities talks, or any engagement with external party, we are using core values as well.
Okay.
So on top of that, we also translate our core values into interview questions.
Hmm.
All
Wow.
right.
Wow.
So when we talk to candidates, there's a list of questions, yeah, that the line managers or the leaders can pick and choose that corresponds to certain values that we want to evaluate. All values are important,
Mm, mm.
but obviously there will be certain few core values that more important to certain functions. All right. So from there, the line managers will able to select the values and ask it during the interviews.
Okay.
All right. So this is how we weave in the core values into the talent attraction and selection portion.
Okay.
Right. So other than that, when the person on board, right, we talk about uh, every organization will have their own performance management.
Mm.
Yeah, we
Okay.
also introduce that into our performance management.
Okay.
Uh, as you all aware, in performance management, we can't run away from setting goals or setting objectives,
Fair enough.
right?
Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough, right? So for us here, we look into the what and the how when we set the objective. The what is referred to the quantifiable, metrics, yeah,
Mm.
for an individual for us to able to track it. We also look into the how of the person. For example, I always like to use this analogy. We have two sales person, let's
Okay.
say A and B, right? They have a target to have 1 million sales per month,
Okay. Okay.
right? So salesman A go through a proper channel,
Mm.
all right, following all the processes, yeah, all the guidelines, and able
Okay.
to secure 1 million.
Okay.
Another scenario, we have a salesman B also having the same goal target,
Okay.
but this person has been, well, I mean, uh, using some innovative way that is not so appropriate, right? For example, right,
Okay.
uh, to get the, I will say, the sales, which also ultimately we achieve the goal. We achieve 1 million per month.
Mm.
But now we have two scenarios. One is having a proper behavior, going through a
Okay.
proper channel. Another one is more towards the creative that might not be so popular or
Okay.
may not be condoned, yeah, by the company on the behaviors.
Okay.
So from here, we have to evaluate which behavior we want to reward. And based on here as well, at the moment, we do run performance calibrations
Okay.
for all levels of employees.
Hmm.
In that performance calibration itself, we talk about performance cross-functionally, yeah, about an individual.
Hmm.
And when we talk about the individual, we take into considerations the how part. And the how part, we are using our values.
Okay.
Whether the person in line with our values or is not or violate some of the values, okay, what are the characteristics? So we talk about it. And generally, the managers that involved in the discussions, they have a
Okay.
clear pictures of what is this value is about and how
Okay.
it's going to affect a person's performance,
Okay.
right? So that is going into the performance management.
Hmm.
Now, of course, another things that we look into is about learning and development.
Okay.
Most of our program also built around core values and our attributes.
Okay.
Okay, so from here we also came up with a playbook to
Hmm.
aid or to support the hiring managers to think about what will be some possible development ideas to develop their employee based on our values. And for us in L&D space, nothing will be alien. We are adopting the 70, 20, and 10 principle of development.
Okay.
Okay, so from there we define some recommended uh, uh, initiative based on different values to guide the managers to think about where is the gap and what kind of interventions, yeah, what kind of action they can take when they talk to their employee. So
Mm.
this type of playbook or guide is given to the line managers for them to use even during their development discussions,
Nice.
right? So so a lot of things here we drive, yeah, the HR processes through the values itself. So people are seeing that it's being incorporated as part of their daily routines.
Nice.
Yeah. Yep.
Nice. Thank you
Mhm.
very much for that. I like some of the takeaways here, where you said even from when you do your recruitment attraction, they actually interview questions given to the line managers, which is in line with the core values. That's fantastic. That really helps them. And I like the fact that you said when it comes to performance management, there are two areas. One is the quantifiable matrices that you look at, which is the what and the how. I like the fact that you gave the example of the sales example, where they come up with magical solutions. But the main focus is their behaviors.
Yeah.
And how is that behaviors aligned to the core values of your organization itself? Nice. And you also brought in about performance calibration across the different functions and the fact that you keep playbook for developmental conversations that the managers can have with their staff, and then they can bring in the appropriate interventions. And
That's right.
everything is all aligned to the core values.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
fantastic, fantastic. You know
Right.
what? I don't think Malar should be in this show. I think just you and I, but I don't think so. She's giving me the dirty looks. I tell you what, I better call her in for one question. I better call her in. She's got one question. That's it. Because I got lots of questions for you, sir.
Okay, I'm going to kick you out of the show from the background. Okay. Yes, and I have two things that came to my mind. So today I was attending a very interesting um, workplace conference, right? So we were
Mm.
talking about well-being at workplace. So it was a really very good conference. And one of the stories, or rather one of the data point that they shared, is that how young people are actually checking in whether their personal values are aligned to the organizational values.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And at the same time, Closes and Foster in the book Leadership Challenge, they also have pointed out that when people are not clear about their personal values, they don't commit to the organizational values. There are two things here happening, right? Because
Yeah.
you did say that we want to have development conversations with our employees, right? So the first thing is that, when you're talking about talent acquisition, right, and you're saying you're checking in for these values, right? uh, what's your experience like where people actually come and tell you that the corporate values are not aligned with their personal values? Have you ever had that experience? And if you have, how do you manage that?
Well, very tough questions, Mala. But it's very interesting questions. Um, I do come across not in the current organizations, but my past organizations. This happened because at that point of time I was in the FMCG, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Clearly, there's a one point of time. Of course, when we were doing interviewing here, when we asked the person whether are you fine with the industry that we are in? For example, have you checked out our values? How do you think about the industry itself? Of course, during the interviews and you are looking for jobs, right? Normally the candidate will say yes lah, yeah,
Mm,
to most of the questions, right? So of course, this person joined the organizations, all right, joined the organizations, and one of the tasks that the person needs to do some preaching, preaching of the product
mm,
value of that product, and that preaching of the product values to a mass of people, to a public. This is where the person after maybe after a day, the person tendered,
mm,
okay, tender resignations.
mm,
And of course, I being the I would say caretakers here for the candidate who joined us, yeah. So I asked why. I I thought that I able to be in line my personal value with the organization value.
Okay.
But after going through the yesterday sessions, I can't. I really can't. It's a tormenting for me to talk something that is against my own personal values.
wow, wow,
Right?
nice.
Right? So I was really taken aback. I said, but remember we had these conversations during the interview. I personally interview you. All right. I have laid out clearly what you're going to expect, the job itself, all right, and the industry. He said, yes, but I thought to give it a try and I don't like it. You know,
Mm,
those kind of conversations. So here I would say that very true. If the organization values is at, I would say, odds with our own personal values, then we have to make a decisions.
mm,
Either we fight for it or we flag. All right. So in this case, it will be the flag factors lah coming in. Yeah.
mm,
So if this is also when we talk about values, we also talk about motivational fit, whether the person will be able to fit into the organizations,
Okay.
mm.
right? Yeah, or else definitely we will experience the same fate. People are not happy.
Nice.
Yeah. Mhm.
Ashok, it's not your turn. You can mute yourself for the next 5 minutes, okay? I want to go back to this because this is a great example of this person having clarity about his personal values, which is very much in line with what Causes and Forstner say, right? Now, have you experienced in your own experience where we all have our values, but we may not be totally clear what those values are, right? And we may not articulate it, right? So in his situation, he's clear. Have you had
Mm.
situations, whether in your current organization or in your experience, basically, where you've met an individual who is not clear about his or her personal values, right?
Yep.
That means I live my life in the Malaysian way we say chin chai lah, right? I just live, right? Like why have to make things so serious, talk about values, have to live in a particular way. So I'm just chilled and relaxed, right? So have you met individuals who lack personal clarity about their values? That means they're not sure what is important for them, and people who are low, that means they're not clear about what is important for them as a
Mm-hmm.
priority. How is their commitment towards the organizational values? Especially like in an organization like yours, where you all are very clear, and at every point of time, you all are saying, "This is how we do it," right? Have you had any experience like
Yeah, thank you, Mala. Definitely, I come across even in my current organizations. Uh,
that?
as you're aware, I also ran training, internal training myself, right?
Mm,
And one of the
mm,
trainings here that I introduced, yeah, to a group of participants is
mm,
more on the self-effectiveness. When I
mm,
talk about self-effectiveness, I talk about personal values and organizational values,
mm,
right? There's some exercises that I went through with them.
mm,
Yeah, some soul searching, I would say that moment. Yeah, for them to soul searching. So there's a one incident where the person, and basically they have not done this in that exercise where really for them to think about what are personal values. But that level of training, they go deep down. Uh, in a sense that I ask them to prioritize some of their values. All right. So and after that, the person, I mean, during the we debrief, yeah, the overall sessions. Then during one of the tea breaks, yeah, the session itself, the person came up and reached out for me. He said that, you know, before that I have no idea of what will be my personal values.
mm,
But
mm.
after going this right, I think that I know what driving me and
Nice,
whether that values is in line with the organizations,
nice.
right? And I asked them to quantify some of the values into certain percentage. I mean, just for fun of it, but they find uh, useful
Mm,
to quantify those type of values. Right now, they have a better understanding of the values and how they can support the overall organizational values. Right.
nice,
Um,
Nice.
so this is one of the example in the training itself lah, that's happened.
Fantastic.
nice.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Not yet, Ashok. Last one. Not yet, not yet. So, in your opinion, right? Let's say you have a position where uh, there's scarcity of talent for that particular position,
Mm,
right? And the person is a fit for the position, the best you can find. Let's say the second best is very far away in terms of disparity, right? Now, and if they are not a value fit, is it worth letting go of this talent?
wow. Very interesting. And based on my experience in the talent acquisition space, right? Uh, I interview a lot of people.
Mm,
Okay, I interview a lot of people. So got one particular I like to share story because it's whatever that you ask is just a come into my mind. This is a story that this person is good in technical know-how, very good, tip top. Is your desired candidate, take all the boxes,
mm,
right? Take all the boxes. Go went through maybe about 2 or 3 rounds of interviews, different panels,
mhm,
all right, to
mhm,
test on certain values and then presentations. And we are contemplating to hire the person.
mhm,
We are convinced we want to hire, but there's a one doubt coming
mm,
up from the hiring manager.
mm,
The hiring managers mentioned, um, I really do not know whether the person can fit into the team or not.
mm,
Whether you want me to let go one tree or you want me to let go a forest.
mm,
And the
mm,
forest refer to the team. right?
Mm,
Because the candidate has a very strong character
mm,
and the team has a very mild character.
mm,
So so right now we are in a catch 21 situations whether technical know-how or we want to jeopardize the team. All right. And the obvious answer, we don't jeopardize the team because it takes time to build a team rather than we hire someone that is able to fit in, so that's the how to say, yeah, things that we want to look into the behavioral aspect of the people. When we interact, definitely we are able to know everyone in the panel did agree, okay, on the decisions, on the
mm,
personalities, on the way of the candidates, right? From there, we make a collective decision not to hire the person.
mm.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
Did you not think about
Hmm.
having a conversation, a development conversation? So, because I'm looking at him as an outlier, right, in this case, because that's the other argument. Let's get an outlier in because everyone is mild. You said the team members are mild personality, he's a strong personality, right? So, another way of looking at it, let's bring in a strong personality to make the team stronger. And let's have a development conversation with him about the importance of teamwork because you've put teamwork as a value and you're standing by that value,
Hmm.
right? The how is very important. I know you can get the results, but it's very important that you have the team. So why
Hmm.
wasn't, so I'm very curious, right? Why can't we just bring him on board and then develop him? After all, he's the best looking.
It's more on the impact to the team itself, and that team
Ah,
is, I would say, it's quite technical teams. Yeah, and when you are in a technical, normally you have a certain behavior or a team norm.
mm,
We call it team norm, right?
mm,
Uh, like I mentioned, it's easier to bring someone in and subsequently to develop, but I think that can be done given that the person is clear about the
mm,
personality.
mm.
But what at that point of time when we make that decision, right? We can envision that some team member might leave.
Ah, nice,
Okay, some team
nice.
member might leave, and if that team member leave, right, then there will be a huge impact. We want to accelerate a person to take over the job. If the person is not fast enough and the team member leave, we have a gap, another gap for us to fill.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice.
So there's a
Thank you.
lot of considerations. Yeah. It's not
Sure,
an easy
sure.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just curious. So you've actually affirmed for us, confirmed for us how it's important for individuals who are clear with their personal values, how it's
Mm,
important for us to make sure that they're also okay with they can fit into the organizational values, and you do it from the beginning. I think that was good. And what I really liked about what the best part of this that I was my personal favorite is the fact that some people are not clear and it's okay, and sometimes when you're having the development conversation, when people don't commit to organizational values, instead of saying, hey, you don't fit, what you're doing is that, okay, let's park the organizational values. Let us, help you develop in your own personal values, i.e., your character, right? So, and when you give them clarity about, when they discover what are
mhm.
their personal values, then their commitment towards organizational values naturally happens. And I also like the fact that, the last part I think is very important, where, we are now showing that if we are really serious about teamwork, we won't
Mm,
choose one over another. So even though we might be able to develop you, but, by taking you in, we will actually, impact the teamwork already. So it's really shooting yourself, in your foot. So and that shows, I think, you're basically what you're taking us to is the importance of not just putting the values, talking about it, but making difficult decisions
yeah.
to say that you really mean it, because our values are often only challenged when it's a crossroad, when the situation is different. Because one of the common stories we hear, right, Ashok,
Mm,
is especially if the person is bringing in the numbers, right? The one who brings in the numbers, when they misbehave, i.e., they don't, they act out of context in terms of the corporate values. A lot of time it is tolerated because he or she is bringing in the numbers. And what you're saying is when we talk about values, we don't compromise. And I think, that's why this is important, right?
Mhm.
Sandeep is asking many questions, so I'm going to pass it to Ashok because I know Ashok is like telling me to shut up. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you.
So, yes, Yat Seng, if you
Yeah.
have noticed, Malar has just done a very beautiful digital Tai Chi. Ask question, okay, throw to Ashok. Okay, no, but Malar, beautiful questions about personal value and corporate value. And I like the fact that Yat Seng, you mentioned that you even held a session to help people internalize and get the clarity, articulate that.
Mm,
I could be wrong. I could be wrong here. I suspect most of us in life go through with many experiences, but we don't have the opportunity to have a well through environment and experience to articulate what those values are.
mhm,
Or we do not have the tools, or we don't have a coach like you to do it. And I'm glad that as an organization, you're taking that personal responsibility, right? To not just treat someone as an employee, as a headcount, but going further down to help that human being understand their own personal values. I think that's
mm.
really fantastic. It's a great thing. Now, one of Sandeep's question, right, which is related to the core values that you were talking about, personal and
Right.
organization. But this time, what he has done is he has added one more dimension to it. He said, okay, between core values and technical niche skills, what you were speaking about of talent selection, which is most valued in the selection criteria where time is of essence. That means he's talking about from an operational point of view. You need this person immediately. There's deadlines to be met. So then what becomes? How do
Yeah.
you make that decision?
Definitely, there's a very tough one. Yeah. We do encounter before, especially those like on the technical side.
Yep.
Technical side where we encounter, for example, yeah, I don't want to relate that job, but there's a very technical job. There's just a handful of people. They are coming from that our industries. Yeah, that has
Okay.
that technical
Okay.
know-how,
Okay.
and we need that skill. Yeah. So during the interviews, right, one of the things, of course, the line manager will ask those like some value questions, yeah, that tie up with certain competencies, and
Mhm.
also to check the technical know-how. One of the things that the candidate share, well, you know that I'm right, okay? Here is the formula. You take me, you have the formula, the technical know-how formula,
Hmm.
right? We cut short the conversations and we say no, right? Why? Because part of our values is integrity.
Hmm.
Okay, if you can do this to another organization, you can do it anywhere else, right? If let's say we hire the person, eventually you are going to take the proprietary or whatever things and you're going to other organization as well. This also compromise on the integrity. So
Sure.
right now we have to make a judgment, technical versus potential damage, which is not quantifiable right now, but the actions of the person show it, right? So here, I would say that our conscience is very clear.
Okay.
Definitely no violations of the organization values because we uphold a lot on our integrity, right?
Okay. Thank you. So what I'm hearing is, regardless of whether it's that time is of essence, is a pressure, your core values is still your guiding beacon. In this instance, the example you gave was integrity. Thank you very much. Now, a follow up question from there from Sandeep. He's very curious. How do you assess a potential candidate in terms of values, behavior, personality? So, do you use a standardized assessment tool to measure these?
Wow, fantastic questions.
It is, isn't it?
Uh, well, obviously, I would say that we do use a competency, all right?
Okay.
So what we did is we map the competencies to the values, okay?
Okay.
To the value that we have. We use a set of competencies uh, that we are accustomed to, yeah, from an external vendor. From there, we morph it into our values in the
Okay.
questions. So from there, we have a structured questions that we pose, yeah, to the employee, and of course I mean to the candidate, sorry, yeah. Uh, we also will ask motivational fit questions.
Hmm. Interesting.
All right. Motivational fit question in the sense that how the person fit into the organization, for example. All right. Um, Normally, I will ask the candidates about uh, what will excite you if, let's say, you wake up early in the morning and you say, wow, I'm ready to go to work.
Okay.
You know, that's the motivational because you want to know about what really motivates the person, right? So from there, you're able to make certain, I will say, comparisons,
Hmm.
judgments, all right? But of course, with uh, some illustration of behaviors for us to see whether that person is able to fit into the cultures. There's no rocket science, all right? We cannot use a direct mathematics equations there to come up with this answer. There's none. But of course, we have some guide rails, parameters that we use
Hmm.
to for us to make that decisions.
Nice. Nice. Thank you. So, like Sandeep said, I like the response. So do I. Okay. I noticed in your core values, your the center that one that takes the biggest is
Yes,
the she. Right. It's not reference to gender. Uh, I believe that takes the highest priority in your organization.
yes,
Right. I know you're
definitely.
from. Yeah, I know you're from a technical point of view, from a manufacturing side, why that is important. But how has that helped the recruitment process or retention in that sense? Do you have any
Wow.
stories to share?
Yeah, interesting. I would say that she is part of our, I would say, uh, a lot of people aware of this she. Yeah, in fact, in our employee voice, right? She, I mean, the safety aspect come out the top, so everyone
Mm,
aware of the she, right? Um, we also, and in this she itself, we also blended it into the KPI. So the KPI itself, we also have individual KPI on safety and also organizational KPI on safety. This is where we inculcate the mindset of safety. Um, why this safety is important in terms of talent attraction? Um, People talk about great resignations. So Synthomer is not spared from great resignation as well. We do have people leaving the organization for greener pasture. Yeah. So particularly this person went out from the organizations. Within 6 months down the road, he knocked back on our door again. All right.
6 months. Okay.
6 months down the road or before
Okay.
6 months, yeah. And and asked us whether we can consider the person back, yeah, into the positions, right? So we asked why, because when you left us, you cited that uh, it's a greener pastures, you got a good package, all right. So what actually make you want to come back, yeah, to Sintama? So one of the interesting things that the person share is about, well, in my current organization, I didn't feel safe at all.
Mm,
All right, I didn't feel safe because the person also worked in a chemical, okay, in another chemical, yeah, manufacturing. So he said that I don't know when an accident will happen,
sure.
but for Synthomer, I feel very safe. I know that Synthomer have a good practice, safety measurements. When I work here,
Nice.
I don't need to think about my own safety because it's taken care by the company through a good system,
Sure.
right? So
Fantastic.
this also to address the safety aspect. If let's say according to Maslow, this also the physiological aspect of an employee. Yeah, so
Okay.
they feel safe. Yeah, to work in the organization.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Uh, yeah, saying, while preparing for this interview today, I had gone into the website to look at your organization, and very interestingly, I came across a recruitment website, right, where
Mm,
candidates who have, employees who have been with the organization, they have got very good things to say about your organization. And you know what comes up? They said,
mm,
symptoma is safety. So it's almost synonymous, in that sense. So that's the way you see it. But I like what they said thereafter. They
mm,
walk the talk. They walk
yeah.
the talk. And that came from one of the independent websites, I was just looking for.
Mhm.
To answer Sandeep's question, the long form for she is safety, health, environment.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So since one of the past candidates had put down and said they walk the talk, my follow up
Mm.
question for you is then, how are leaders held accountable for the core values?
Oh, interesting. Um, right now, we have been creating a lot of awareness through our leaders to have a continuous conversations.
Okay.
And these continuous conversations, right, revolve around development. When we talk about development, we talk about values and attributes, right? Uh, these where leaders, I would say that we empower the leaders to make that courageous conversation, whether courageous in terms of performance or in terms of development, right? Long gone are the days where the conversation only happens end of the year,
Mm,
right? Where employee are crying out from the rooms. So we want to reduce that aha moment. That's why we empower the leaders to have frequent informal kind of conversations along the way, right? To guide for them to guide through the how to say the employee. If let's say you see our attrition rate, for example, just last year, I think we are well below the market, maybe about 7%. Market maybe about 11 or 13%, right? So I believe in a lot of these metrics because metrics tells stories, right? There must be something good that we have done that we are able to keep our people. And through this, I would say that we are able to understand that leaders plays a very important role in engaging the employee
okay.
and also to impart what is really meaningful, what is really important, right? So that they are not deviating, yeah, from whatever that they are doing. Okay, so this is where I think that the work still needs to be done, but we
Sure.
are on the right path, I would say.
Fantastic, fantastic. So
Yeah.
what I'm hearing is the bridge of holding the leaders accountable to the values is the continuous conversations, to be courageously holding the frequent continuous conversations that focuses on both performance and development.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Mhm.
Nice, nice. Muller, you have a question? No. Okay, then I carry on.
I'm waiting for the so what we call soalan cepu emas, the golden buzzer question.
Which is
Sandeep has already said psychological safety and
safety,
industrial safety both are crucial in chemical industry.
chemical industry. I
And I
totally agree.
think, yeah, and I think one of those things that that you got us thinking through, in our conversation, you did say that she safety is the prerequisite. So by
Yes.
now, you see,
Mm.
Yat Seng, I trust you. Just meeting you, working with you. Ashok had to go and find out whether what I said about you is true. So you see, he checked your work. So
It's called
anyway,
research. Research.
okay, but the research turned out well. I mean, I think these are amazing. It's amazing when someone who leaves is still a brand ambassador.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So that tells you, I don't think you walk the talk, but I think you talk the walk. Y'all do it and then only y'all talk about it. I think that's how I view you, right? But you said something really interesting, which is safety is the prerequisite, right? To all everything else in the organization, and that got us thinking because I think in a non-manufacturing environment, non-technical environment, you know what, we'll be
Mm.
wondering, okay, we often talk about psychological safety. So we're very successful in getting she to be part of the organizational DNA. That if this is something we won't compromise, right?
Mhm.
But I think on the other hand, one of the struggles of organization is we know psychological safety is important. People are saying psychological safety is important. People are not feeling safe with psychological safety, right? Now, how do you in your organization make sure there's psychological safety?
Well, thank you, Mala. It's boiled down to communications.
Mm,
All right, to have a transparent communications with the employee,
mm,
setting the right expectations, not keeping them in the dark,
mm,
not knowing what is happening. Um, so this transparent communication is crucial. All
mm,
right, also to maintain the psychological safety aspect, whether people needs informations and
mm,
they will able to make the decisions based on these informations. All right, and whatever that we do, we cannot, how to say, hide from the employee. It's better to make it transparent. And I would say that we do have this type of transparent communications from the global town hall to regional to local, even to departmental. All
mm,
right. At the site as well, they have a regular day-to-day type of toolbox meeting, for example, to catch
mm,
up, yeah, on the how to say a what are on the news, what is happening, so that employees are well aware of the company situations.
mm.
That's it. That is important,
Nice,
right?
nice.
So what I'm
One
hearing.
follow.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Ashok, this time are you really very excited? I know. Hold on.
I know. I know. I know.
No, this is such an important thing. So, Yatin, try me understand this, right? Uh, when we know we're not practicing she, it will show up in incidents.
Mm-hmm.
In your experience, when we are not practicing psychological safety, I mean, we're talking about it, but there could be teams where there's no psychological safety for whatever reason. What sort of incidents can we look out for us to know that, hey, maybe there's no psychological safety in this? He's all yours after this.
Well, well, what are the things to look out for? Interesting, yeah. Uh, uh, Oh, you really give me a hard thought on this
Okay.
topic, Mala.
Let me
Yeah,
prompt you a bit. Would there be
yeah.
certain data that will reflect that, or would it be on a day to day, from a day to day behavior? Would there be some signs?
Definitely, we are tracking it based on incidents. Just now, when I share about personal KPI on safety, all right. Even though we are not at the operations, we are at the back end. We also
Mm,
have our own personal KPI on safety, where we are measuring our behavioral safety. If let's say we come across or we notice certain hazard, potential hazard,
mm,
then we have to report it. And we have a system to capture this reporting. And there will be a person, normally it's a safety officer, who are going to investigate,
mm,
right? Whether that translate into safety incidents or how we want to quantify it, right? For example, in our organizations, we have some golden rules yeah, 10 golden rules of safety
Mm.
um, that we preach to all the employees, yeah, that have to follow. And of course, these also translate into for Synthomy, we also subscribe to certain international benchmark on safety KPIs, right? Uh, Whether we are there, we we are there, almost there, right? But of course, this is just a yardstick or measurement.
Mm.
It keeps us to think about how we can keep our employees safe. The KPI is just a KPI, but the most importantly is how we want to keep our employees safe in mind so that they can go back home safely, to mingle around with the family members. And all of this part of behavioral incidents is also captured in a system that we capture it, yeah, a central system on all
Mm.
these potential hazards, right? Yeah.
Nice.
So, I hear a lot about psychological safety coming from a communication point of view,
Mm.
but what about conversational point of view? Because the one-on-one conversations, the performance development feedback conversations are also part of psychological safety.
Yeah.
How is that embedded or given to the leaders, the tools?
Yeah. So the leaders, right, like I mentioned, they will carry out the informal conversation along the way to
Yep.
check. We also encourage the leaders to have a mid-year review. Although we don't make it compulsory, most of the leaders, right, that take the exercise seriously
Okay.
Mm.
to really to check whether the person is on par, to carry out that type of conversation, right, to have a check for the half of the year. If let's say you ask me whether every managers are diligently, not, but most of them are. They
Nice.
are doing that, right?
Right.
If I say 100%, I might be bluffing you, right?
Sure.
But definitely we are, how to say, encouraged to our role model so
Hmm.
that these leaders that role model, that can role model to the peers as well. Because
Fantastic.
normally employee talk among themselves also about the leaders. So
Of
this
course.
also to keep the leaders on the toes, right? If peers pressure, comparison, right? And they also will go to the leaders to talk about certain issues. Yeah. So this where we want to encourage the employee to do more, to reach out, speak out. One of the, I would say, culture in Sintama, we have an open door.
Open door.
Open door where we feel safe to go into any of the big shops room, the boss's room, just knock on the door, to have that type of conversations.
Right.
And we don't pull rank in the organizations because I have a better positions title. All right, there's
Nice.
no pull rank, and people call each other by the first name. We also address our CEO by the first name.
Nice.
So this level of I would say a intimacy and also the bonding, yeah, practicing the open door to all the employees.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Fantastic.
So
Uh,
I reprimand before an employee when the employee call me Mr. Yat Seng. I said that's very formal. You
okay.
just call me Yat Seng will do.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is the level that the leaders will try to address, yeah, to the employee. But of course, Asian being Asian, Asian are polite
Sure.
because of
Sure.
our hierarchical type of a culture. Yeah.
Sure. Sure. Thank
Right.
you very much. Thank you, Mr. Yat Singh.
Okay, since you
Okay.
say Mr. Yat Seng, you lose your next 1 minute.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay. It's
so
already
I
seven. Let's go.
no. One question. I think I like this. You say if we don't pull rank, and I like the fact that you
Yeah.
address each other's name by the first name, which is fantastic, right? Is there any story that you can tell us to inspire us where someone junior had the courage to walk into a senior management's a person's room, right? A senior manager's room and tell a difficult story and was successful?
Well, I do a lot of observation in the organizations here, especially in the corporate office here, where the big bosses sit, right? So, got one time I can notice a very young junior executive enter into a room. After that, they close the door. Must be something that is serious.
Hmm.
But of course, when the person come up, the person came up cheerful. Based on that observations, yeah, I
Nice.
believe that it's a successful in terms of advice getting from a senior leaders coming up from the
Nice.
room itself, right? So there's a lot of things that we have done to really encourage an open culture within the organizations. Mhm.
Nice.
That was
Fantastic.
what that additional minute we took, because what I
More than that.
love
Yeah.
what I loved about the story is Yatsen doesn't know what's the story about, but
Yeah.
just through the observation, we
Observation.
know.
That's right.
And this is a real example of psychological safety. Because if you
Exactly.
could tell the story, there's no safety anymore. And you've just demonstrated that, Yatsen. Thank you very much, even though I put
Thank
you
you
on the
very
spot.
much.
Thank you,
You know,
thank you. Right.
Yat Sing, I could go on and on, but we're 3 minutes past, and the good thing is we still can have a conversation after this. But no, thank you very much, because the listeners today, our guests who have all logged in, right, have really taken away a lot from you. You spoke a lot about the culture, how to create a culture, and ladies and gentlemen, Yat Sing has just demonstrated how let's lean on our values, right? The values are already there. Let's lean on our values. Let's be very purposeful in the way we do recruitment to development by focusing on the values. Let's not just focus on the matrices, but let's focus on the behaviors also, right? And for if you want to help your organizations develop, give them a playbook, give the leaders a playbook, and encourage the leaders to have continuous conversations around development and performance. And ladies and gentlemen, if you really want to create the right culture, make sure you focus on the communication where information is provided throughout the whole organization, right up to the team level, even in the daily toolbox meetings, right? So they can make the right decisions by leaning on the values, right? And furthermore, have that open door policy. Let's call each other by our first names to have the intimacy. And yes, like what Sandeep had said, thank you, Yat Singh, for this wonderful session, which coincides with the World Values Day. All right, and
It's
all the
my
insights
pleasure.
you've
Thank you for the invitations here, Ashok and Malang. I
Malar.
really
Yeah.
appreciate it. Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you,
Thank
thank
you.
you,
Thank you.
thank you.
Oh, okay. Great
Malar, I'll
wrap
leave it to
up,
you.
Ashok. Yes, yes, great wrap up, Ashok, says Jason again. So, Yating, thank you very much for saying yes. Thank you for answering all our questions so candidly. And I think what's most important is we can see how you talk your walk. All right, very, very consistently. So, with that, we're going to say bye to Yating first. And for Singapore, thank you very much for tolerating the additional 5 minutes, which was worth because we were navigating through the World Values Day. So, Ashok, good one.
Fantastic. Can't wait for the next speaker. No, but
All
it's the end of the month. It's a wrap up. Okay, no matter. We'll talk about that later. But yes,
right.
Yat Singh
With
has been
that,
wonderful.
yes, with that, while we say thank you, I think one big takeaway for me from Yatsing, even from the first time we spoke to him, is that if we can treat psychological safety the way we treat safety,
Yes.
physical safety, can you imagine the kind of workplaces that we will create, live, and thrive? With that,
Exactly.
have a wonderful day. This is Mara signing off from
And this is Ashok.
Malaysia.
And this is Ashok from Singapore. Bye bye.